Okay, so let's get the multicast on the C2 spoke. So the first thing we notice in this one is that we're going to be running the rendezvous point for the customer here on our hub sites. We're in the hub and spoke here in the pink. So to do that, we're going to be setting some new IP addresses are going to be Anycast. So router 1 and router 2 are going to share the same IP address. And of course, we have to make sure that their own IP, the original IP address for the VRF is set to primary so that we don't cause trouble with the VRF. Now you can see here the rendezvous point address. It's set to local, of course. It would be static if it was a remote PE. And we're setting the group ranges here because we're just beyond the range that Juniper considered to be multicast. And of course, we've got PIM on all the interfaces, so that will be going out to the CEs here, and it will be running that customer PIM. However, we are the rendezvous point, so we will be running SPT only, which means we won't have that any source multicast. It will we'll have to know, the source of the multicast. So there's a restriction there because we're being the rendezvous point. Okay, so what's next? Well, we've got the PIM on. The MVPN protocol is coming in the next screen. We've got tunnel services on here. You really have to know this, but it makes a lot of sense. When the register packets are sent to the rendezvous point, that's actually encapsulated multicast inside unicast. And to open that, we really need the tunnel services, which is why this is required. It just helps in that register phase from the source to the rendezvous point. Okay, so we've got our new Anycast IP address. We need to send that out to the customer. And of course, we're on the hub, so we send towards the spoke and we receive from the hub. So we're going to be exporting the new IP address and, in fact, all the directs out to the C2 spoke, and so that it can receive them and it can use that Anycast address. We're turning on the B2B family signaling here, and we need to do the same thing on the route reflector on both of the clusters. Here is this hidden policy that we have been talking about. So basically what happens here is that we're going to be turning on the multicast on the spoke. Of course, the hub would be creating its own RT import if we turned multicast on the hub. So when you turn on the multicast, you go into the routing instance and you turn on the MVPN. It creates a couple of sort of new communities. One is called RT import and one is called source AS. You can see them in this hidden policy, which is also created. If you do run show policy, you get to see the hidden policies. They begin with an underscore, they end with the word internal and an underscore. And you can see in here this root import, which it's even referring to as a target. There's 3 that get created when you turn on MVPN, and this is one of them. You can see the target here, and you can also see the source AS in here. Source AS community is for inter-AS work, which we're not doing, but it's a good thing to do it. So what we're going to do, we are going to take these policies, and we're going to copy them into the hub. So we're exporting out of the hub along with all the other routes, and that's because our routes are arriving at our customer site via the hub. Now, there is another way to do this in the manuals, where you don't have to copy the routes from one side to the other. However, this is what we're doing here, and but it would be interesting certainly to run through that other example and see how that works. Okay, so do bear in mind here that we're on router 1 and on router 2. Now they're different PEs and they will both be creating a different RT import, because the way that these RT imports, which we're referring to as a target here, are created, it's basically the processor ID of the VRF and then the PE unique IP address. So router 1 and router 2 will both be creating them and they will be different. So router 1 will need to export router 1s onto the hub site and router 2 will need to export router 2s.